let me now begin. Just like what I mentioned to you, my part is the business part. And the title that I have chosen for my short presentation is, how do we innovate? How do we reinvent the goose that lays the golden egg? I would like to begin with a true story. Some of you have heard me. I have friends from Louvier who's joining in. I had a wonderful webinar with them. I shared this story with them. I have shared this story in other trainings that I've had before. This is a true story that happened in Princeton University during the 70s, many, many years ago, to a group of theology students, seminary students. These students are taking up theology. They'll be priests, they will be pastors, and what have you after they graduate. Keep that in mind. They were given a special assignment in preparation for their final exams. The special assignment given to them is to study the parable of the Good Samaritan. Again, keep that in mind. That's a key point or part of this story. They were given an assignment, and that is to study carefully the parable of the Good Samaritan, because for their final exam, they will give a sermon or a presentation exactly on that parable. The day of the exam came. They all went to the classroom, only to find an empty room, including the teacher. The teacher wasn't even there. When they examined carefully, they found on the desk of the teacher a note. The note says, change of venue. We want you to transfer from Hall A, where you are right now. We want you to transfer to Hall B. And then the note says, and it gave the time. They check their watches. They have few minutes to do this. You know, Princeton University is quite a large campus. And so this is quite a distance. And so all of them rushed out of the classroom, and they were running from Hall A all the way to Hall B. Now, while they were running from Hall A to Hall B, these students all passed by a man who was in excruciating pain. Now, I want you to imagine a man who was probably bent over, holding his stomach in great pain. And here's the irony of the story. No one from these students who were ready to give a sermon on the parable of the Good Samaritan ever stopped to help this man. Zero. No one ever stopped to help this guy. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Why am I sharing this with you? Listen carefully, my friends. The journey from Hall A to Hall B is as important as arriving in Hall B. Let me say that again. The journey from Hall A to Hall B is as important as arriving in Hall B. The way we use our quarantine time right now, the way we're using our quarantine time is as important, and maybe even more so, as when the day the government finally declares this quarantine is finally over. Let me say that again. The way we're using our quarantine time right now is as important as the day the government finally makes that declaration, that announcement that this lockdown and quarantine is over. This, my friends, is a perfect time for us to add value to ourselves, to our families, and to our businesses. That this quarantine time is a perfect time to start reinventing the goose that lays the golden egg. Here's my big fear. My big fear is that many people, and maybe some of them are listening in right now, many people are thinking that after the lockdown is over, we're back to business as usual. Boy, my friends, if you are thinking that after the lockdown it's going to be business as usual, I think you and I are in for a big and nasty surprise. My friends, it's a new normal. It's going to be a new normal. And what's the definition of that new normal? I don't know. I don't know yet. But definitely, things have changed. Things will continue to change. Those who are in the business as usual mindset is asking the question, how do we go back to how we do things? Those who are in the reinventing mindset are asking the right question. How do we change? How do we do things in a different... Brothers and sisters, we are in a different world. This is a different thing altogether. My friends, we will be witnessing in the next few months, two groups of businesses, two groups of entrepreneurs. Group number one, but we will continue to witness right before our eyes businesses that would slowly fade away. But we will also be witnessing another group. These groups have the foresight and the agility to take on the opportunities that are brought about by the changes this COVID, this pandemic, this crisis have truly brought about. Listen carefully, my friends. Write this down. Two strategies. Critical two strategies. Strategy number one. You and I need to have a survival strategy. For the next few months, maybe even several months, you and I need to have a solid survival strategy. We have to cut the burns. We have to keep the expenses low. We have to cut the costs. We have to extend the cash. Now, here's the second strategy, equally important and maybe even more important than the first. The second strategy is a reinventing strategy. Now, why is that important? If you have a survival strategy, good, you might survive this for the next 6 months, but after 6 months, you're insignificant. After 6 months, you're a dinosaur. Because why? You were not able to reinvent your operation. You were not able to reinvent your business. My final point, and I'm going to give you 3 sources of where to draw inspiration so that you can start the process of reinventing. Now, number 1, new habits, new behavior, new attitudes. It's beginning to happen, my friends. It's beginning to happen. It has already started. But as months unfold, we will continue to observe changes in people's behavior, changes in people's attitudes, changes in people's habits. Number 2 is the supply chain. The supply chain. What is the supply chain? I'm going to give you a quick, non-academic, 1-minute sermon on the supply chain. We consumers, we are all about the end product. All right? We are all about the end service, the end product. Example, Chicken Joy. Okay, pag tinignan mo Chicken Joy, we are happy you have your Chicken Joy. But if you want to understand the supply chain concept, you have to trace as far back everything that were involved in creating that end product. You have to consider as much as possible all the raw materials that went through to create your end product. Chicken Joy is the end product. There's the live chicken. Now, live chicken, kailangan ng feeds. Yung manok, hindi lang kailangan pakainin, kailangan ng medicine, kailangan ng vet. Ngayon, pag kinatay na yan, all these raw materials now have to go through all the logistical issues, right? There's warehousing of this chicken. There's the shipping of their chickens. There's the handling of their chicken. So all of these things will compose the supply chain. Number 3 is the overall way of doing business. We have to now start checking the overall way of how we do business. How we do business now, I tell you, is now an old model. How do we let our raw materials get delivered? How do we cook our dish? How do we train our sales team? How do we let our sales team sell? All of this will change, my friend. So we have to start looking at ours and make sure that our services, everything in our business will now adapt to the changes that are around us. My friends, my time is up. So let me just summarize. 2 strategies: survival strategy, reinventing strategy. In the reinvention, 3 things. A keen observation of the changes in behavior, changes in attitudes, changes in habits. An excellent way to get inspiration to reinvention. Number 2, the supply chain. The supply chain has been damaged, but there's so many opportunities right there to reinvent our services, our products. And number 3, the overall way of the way we do business, everything from delivery, from selling, from everything, from communicating, all of these things. Thank you so much.